Kids and cadets, welcome back to Tommy Time. I appreciate you coming out. What we're looking at today is a Hyper Tough. It's a 2016 model year. This is a 125cc with a 20-inch cut. This is an example of one of the cheapest mowers you can buy. It's just a standard mower. There's nothing fancy about it. You have to manually adjust the wheels on the deck. This is your basic run-of-the-mill, cheapy Walmart style machine. So I just dug this out of my to-do pile, and we'll discuss what the deal is with this Hyper Tough. Here's the product number, the Hyper Tough model number, 2016 model year, 20-inch cut. So like I said, I grabbed this out of my to-do pile today. The deal with this thing, the recoil is missing. There was no recoil on it. The two front wheels were both bowed in and hitting the deck, and there was no blade or adapter. So either I cannibalized this or it came in like this. I don't remember. This was at the back of the pile. I figured I'd get it ready for season. So I happened to go into my scrap section and found this recoil, which is what we need. We've got a square cup and we've got the spring out pawls. So those two things match. And it's got the stubby front end. Usually on these cheapies, you'll find they've got a square front end as compared to this yard machine behind me that I'm also working on it. You see it's got more of a pointy front end on the recoil assembly. So this will be a perfect candidate to throw onto this Hyper Tough, this recoil, even with the woolly monster still sleeping here in the underside. We won't disturb him. So it is a 20-inch cut that matches, and it is a 125cc. So all of this here is legitimate. I did not lie. Side discharge, it is. So this will go with the unit. So that's that. So let's turn this on its side. I want to show you the undercarriage. We'll discuss that, and then we'll start taking the carb off once I put it on the tailgate. So this will be a little bit of a project for you guys. I hope you can stick around and enjoy the show. So I've had this thing on multiple sides, messing with these wheels. You see the new blade and the new blade adapter, the spacer and the new bolt. So all that was here was the shaft. I thought, well, maybe the shaft was bent and either I or somebody else stole parts off of it, but it looked like the shaft was pretty straight when I was pulling on the or actually moving the flywheel. So these decks are extremely thin. You can see what happened here. The wheel was actually in that hole up here, and it kind of wallowed itself out and actually split here in the deck, really thin. So you can see how this got pushed out, so the wheel actually was cockeyed. I ended up heating up these nuts and bolts with my acetylene torch. I put a little creep on it, penetrant oil, moved them down to the next hole, and added this washer here for support. Same thing on the top wheel, moved it down one position, added a big washer here for support. Same thing, heated this up, This came with big washers in the back for some reason. Moved it from that hole down to the bottom hole. So this is what we got for the underside. Let's turn this thing back over, get it up on the deck, and remove the carburetor. Before we do that, let's discuss some parts. What I used was a Rotary adapter kit. You get all that stuff I mentioned, and it's 17-15019. If you put this on Google, it'll bring up the MTD part number, and you can use their number. You can start off with this Rotary number, 17-15019. You go to Flea Bay and the Big Jungle Company with that, and it'll bring you to the MTD number. So that was that. I just used an Oregon blade, 98-068. It replaces the MTD number, 942-0640 is the MTD number, and they give a Stens and Rotary number. But if you use the 942-0640, you'll get a hit on the Big Jungle Company or Flea Bay. Just a 20-inch standard bow tie blade. So that was that. I figured we could do a little shaker can paint after we get this thing squared away, if we have time. I don't want to keep you guys from important business. Okay, I'm cleaning off a spot for this. I also took the plug out. It's got a Champion RC 12YC. I just wanted to spin the flywheel, stuck my thumb in the hole to see if it had compression. It feels like it has compression. I didn't see any oil or water on the plug, so I think it's dry enough. So let me heave ho with this thing. I also oiled up the safety brake cable. That was a little rusty but salvageable, so I did that. We won't have to buy another cable. So you see a lot of oil here. That was me from tipping this thing back and forth just to get those wheels adjusted. So we got a lot of oil here. This is saturated way too much. So let's remove the carb, clean it out, pour out the gas that's in here. Who knows how long this thing's been sitting. So I'm gonna start here in the center with the two screws that go into the carb. I hope you're in a good place to see. I'll try to move quickly. I know you guys are busy, you have lots to do. But basically, this is the standard setup you'll find on the newer plastic style engines, plastic tank, plastic carburetor. They all come off like this. You'll either have an automatic choke system or a primer bulb system, which this one has. So your air filter backing plate may change here, but once we remove this, everything's going to be pretty much the same. except the thermostatic wafer. If you have an automatic choke, you'll have an extra linkage here on the carburetor, but the internal parts here are the same. I'm going to take this off as one piece. My O-ring and the white keeper, put that aside. We're going to need that again. Just looking at the throat of the carb, it looks like there's a leaf. No, it's just some sort of brown gunk built up here. I thought it was a leaf that had softened up. So kind of dirty. I'm going to take my needle nose, bring this hose clamp down like that. Give the hose a twist to break the friction and pull with all my Tommy time might until this hose relinquishes its power and breaks free like it just did. So let's work on the tank. Let me get a container. I'm always curious to see what's in these tanks, what Harvey and Henrietta, the homeowner, put in here. And we got a lot of yard debris. Surprisingly, I don't see any water, but we'll check the bowl. I got compressed air nearby. I'll blast out this tank. Let me show you what we got. A lot of yard debris down there. It doesn't stink. Smellometer isn't going off the charts. So maybe they pushed this aside because the wheels, front wheels, were rubbing on the deck and thought this thing's kaput. Little did they know Tommy Time was going to salvage it with some washers and moving it to some different holes. Let me blast out the tank. PDC, pretty darn clean. So this is ready to go. We'll set that right there. Got some gas on my hands. Let me grab a rag and clean up. Okay, let me make a little spot, little worker spot here for the carb. So let's show you this. Okay, this is what I want. Yeah, 7. The bottom 2 nuts here, the wide washer style, are 7s. Remove those, and I'm going to grab a wide screwdriver to separate the bowl from the body. Hey, how you doing? Neighbor just went by. Gave me the old toot toot. Let me grab a wide screwdriver. We're going to pry off the bowl. I was not prepared for you. I should have had this special screwdriver ready to go. I think it's a snap-on. I didn't buy it, somebody else bought it. Probably got it at a yard sale. So separated the bowl here, got an air gap. I'm just going to give a little twist with a smaller screwdriver. And we have some, looks like kind of milky fuel. There may even be water down there in the pickup bowl, the pickup tray at the very bottom. Yeah, I see some water. That's what we got down there. That little pickup cavity is full of water. Which just settled down to the bottom of my container, and it's collecting all the yard waste in one nice little pile. So that's that. Let me use some compressed air on the bowl. That's ready to go back on. Main jet looks like it's open. I don't see any blockage. I can see the white plastic behind it, but we're going to pop it out anyway. Take a screwdriver, go to the jet, and just lift up on the whole cartridge. Cartridge comes out like so. Your secondary cartridge here in the middle. Just lost my hat, but I grabbed it. Pull up on this. A little bit of blockage there. I think there's something in that jet, but some yard debris there. We got to blast that off. So I'll give this a general clean up with some compressed air only. Like so. So that's ready. Put that back in the bowl. Now I'm just going to do some general air blasting in 3 different sections here at where the cartridge was, right there on this end, the middle, and then up here. I've got a nice pointy nozzle. Just some general cleanup. Blast some into my intake. That seems to be working. Right there, and those 2 ports. The breather hose, breather nipple here. That's free and clear. Looks good to me. So we'll put the cartridge back in. This little slot goes on top of that little hill. Click it down. One more cleanup. My hands are dirty. Ready to go back in. It only goes in one way. So it didn't go that way, it goes this way, 2 thumbs down. Now we're ready for the bowl. Looking where my jet is, looking where the little pickup cavity is. Those have to line up, something like that. Pickup, bowl, jet right on top of each other. Line up my 2 holes, kind of push this thing together with brute force. Take my 2 wide screws. I know you've watched my videos, you've seen this before. These are a little longer and they have a wide washer style head to keep this bowl in place. Hand tighten those, get my ratchet, just give them a snug until it's tight. Don't over tighten them. You'll end up stripping out the plastic here. Okay, so that's put back together. Let's grab the O-ring, put it here. There's a little notch that it sits in. You take the plastic keeper, that clicks into place like so. Now let's move you back over. And why don't we, since we got the tank off, do a little shaker can right now. I got political advertisement and a store flyer. We'll do this side since the tank is not in our way. Something like that. Not that you'd be able to see this with the tank in the way, but I figured what the heck. Something like that. Keep going around the corner. We'll do the back side. Since I've got my newspaper, and I'm going to do up here, the paint from all that fell off. So paint that up. Okay, so we just did half of it. We'll do this here before we put the recoil on the head and the valve cover. Smells like paint. Okay, let's stay focused. Time to put the linkage on the carb. This goes down, the white breather goes through that machine notch in the bracket. Give it a little push with both hands. Now it's time for the tank. I like to sit the tank in the slot up here and then now fish the hose into the carb and then push down on this all the way. Then push the hose on some more. Push this down some more and then push the hose on all the way. Kind of a two-step process. Grab my needle nose, put the clamp on. So that's on. Linkage is free and clear, nothing binding that. I'm going to blast off this backing plate, and then we'll put this on. Just want to make it a little cleaner. Normally I would have degreased this in the beginning, let it sit out in the sun after I washed it off, and then it would have been dry by the time we put it back together again. Going to start with my 2 inner screws. Those go right into plastic. So get those started. They go right into the body of the carburetor. The outer 2 screws here are sheet metal screws. I like to get these started first. Snug them down. They're just going into plastic. That's done. Grab my 2 sheet metals. This is 8mm. The 2 screws were 7s. Get these started. Okay, so I hope this thing works. I'm hoping the homeowners got rid of it because the wheels here were bent. They probably thought, well, we only spent $129 for this thing. Time to get another machine, because that's probably what this thing went for back in 2016. I'm going to oil up my pawls here and look for the spring where it makes the 90. I'm going to squirt some oil in there so it seeps down on the spring, coats the spring, prolong the life of the recoil. The spring gets rusty and breaks, so the homeowner will have to change out the recoil or push this thing to the street. I want this thing to get the most possible usage. Okay, so there we go. Just a little bit of oil on the pawls and on that plastic. I won't disturb the woolly bear. He's going to go to a new house. So why don't we do the plug first? We'll do the plug. That way we can manipulate the plug wire easily. Well, heck, before we do that, since we're going to do that, we're going to do a little spraying. We'll spray this now so I don't spray the wire. Something like that, just to make it look shiny, because you're going to see all this aluminum. Okay, so that means we just got to do the other side, the right side. I'm getting ahead of myself. Plug first. One thing at a time, Tommy time. Don't try to do it all at once. We got a little orange peel there. Might have had some oil on the overhead valve. It's kind of bubbling up. An Earl Scheib paint job. Scuff and shoot. Get them out the door. They look pretty for 6 months, then the sun starts fading the cheap paint. Okay, see how that looks now. Let's get back up here with my 8mm socket and find out what I did with the bolts for that. Okay, we got them. Okay, got these started. So what are the chances this thing starts? I think they're pretty good. It just had old fuel in it, but I think the deck integrity is what sent this thing down the road, the junkyard road. It might have been me that took the blade off of it. I might have had a better looking unit with no body damage. Okay. Let me get this down on the ground. We'll do a little more painting. Before we do that, we'll put an air filter on it. And let me blast this off real quick. We'll take care of that. Then we'll oil up a new filter. So just take some motor oil, put a couple of pours on this, just wet it down. That looks fine. Put it back into the bag. Kind of squeeze that oil around like so. Just enough to catch the small particles. You don't want to snuff out the airflow by saturating this thing. Okay, so that's on. Okay, plugs on, this is on. We got to fuel it and then go ahead and paint that other side. I'll remove the yellow oil dipstick so I don't paint that. We got to make it look somewhat professional. I just had a little overspray. Right there. But I'm not worried about it. We had enough oil and the oil was clean. So I'm not going to mess with that. Let's let that dry, that spray paint. Let's fuel it right now. Time for some non-ethanol fuel, which is more expensive than the ethanol. They charge you extra to keep out the ethanol, which doesn't make sense, but some things don't make sense. Okay, that's plenty enough to get it to start. So cross your fingers. I'm saying it's going to start on the second pull. Let's see. Give it a couple of good primes. Whoops. Forgot about this. Good thing it didn't start or we would have had an oil bath. I won't crank it down all the way. Give a chance for that spray paint to dry. Well, that was 2. So a little jumpy. The crankshaft may be slightly bent. It seemed like it was a little bit jumpy. Kind of rattly and jumpy. But it started on the third pull. I don't see anything leaking down through the oil seal. I'm pouring gas from somewhere. Pouring gas out of the carburetor. Okay, I think we're done with this one. It'll make somebody a cheap mower. Okay, it's a 2016. There's your product number. The Hyper Tough model number. If you need a 20-inch blade, it's the MTD 942-0640. If you need the adapter kit with the bow tie adapter, the spacer, and the bolt, you can use this Rotary number, the 17-15019. Google that and it'll bring you the MTD number. Or you put it on Fleabay and it'll show you the MTD number, usually in the description that the sellers provide. They'll say same as number or OEM number. Have a good day today. Appreciate you coming out. Hopefully this wasn't too long and tedious for you. I'll just add this to my ready pile. I'll probably degrease the recoil since I didn't clean that. I just snatched it off of a dead machine. So I'll clean that up and this thing will be ready to advertise come grass growing season. It's still too early yet. Grass hasn't really taken off, but it will rather quickly, and I'll have these units ready to go out the door. Please tip your waitress and wait staff. Have a great day today. Thanks again for coming out.